I will walk you through exactly how I went about sculpting this posed Zyzz model in Blender, and I will be showing you every step that I took with reasoning why I did that and the things that you need to take care of in every step. This video is not going to be a time-lapse video where I will be just describing things over a narration and then leaving you to figure things out. No, look, I will be here guiding you through every single step with proper reasoning on why did I do that. And as a bonus, I will also be sharing on how I present my scenes, because a lot of people have been asking me, I'm getting comments, hey, how can you make a video about lighting and how you go about doing that, because they look very realistic. So as a bonus, I will also be showing you how to do that as well. Now, you might be wondering, why do I see Aryan here? And that's because me and Aryan, we collaborated on this, and so basically what I did is I sculpted the model here and Aryan modeled the base here. So let me show you, bro, the beautiful topology of this plate, this standard 45-pound plate, which Aryan modeled. So yeah, shout out to my man Aryan. If you want to learn how to model in Blender like a beast, like a G, then go check out his channel. I will leave a link in the description. So without any further ado, let's begin. So why am I making this breakdown in the first place? That is because I tried figuring out a way on how to make posed characters like this in Blender, but honestly I couldn't do so. Like there were so many videos. Some talked about face sets and the pose tool with the IK setting, and it just leaves so much seams. Then another one was to rig the model, retopologize it first. It takes so long. I don't want to do that. What I wanted to do is I wanted to figure out, okay, how can I make a sculpt, and then how can I make it end up in a pose like this? And honestly, I struggled with finding good resources for this. So the only way that I figured out was to actually go into the trenches and doing it myself and figuring out on my own. I think life is just about biting off more than you can chew and then figuring out how to chew this. So that is exactly what I did here. This was also part of my weekly challenge inside my sculpting school. So you can see what I did is I asked the members to sculpt something that they always wanted to try for a while, something that challenges them, but they did not have the opportunity to do so yet. And hence the members inside, they are trying to do the same thing as well. So you can see Alex, he just tried what I did, and his challenge was to sculpt everything asymmetrically. And boy, oh boy, I wonder how much time that it took. So only Alex can tell. So yeah, this was my challenge. Like I wanted to make pose characters for quite a while. I wanted to figure it out. So I just used the opportunity on the challenge, and hence I'm making this video. My teaching philosophy is really, really simple, bro. What I do is I just make content for my younger self. So I was struggling with this, and I just make content in a way that I wish someone had made, so that it would make what I achieved easier. And hence this video is for you, because I wished someone had broken it down this way. Okay, and just one last disclaimer, and then I'll shut up and then I'll dive into the breakdown, is that this video does not have fancy editing or music. So if you feel bored, if you feel like you don't have enough, and if you feel like you don't have enough brain cells to follow along, bro, just get out. You're a jury and I cannot help you. And if you're watching this, if you're still watching this, you have my respect, bro, because like you haven't brain rotted yourself, and like me, you appreciate high quality educational content. I only make that. So if you're still watching, subscribe. The Jerrys, they've already clicked off because I've offended them already. Okay, so without any further ado, let's begin. The first thing that you want to do before making any sculpture or any piece of art is that you need to gather good references. And let me show you. So what I did was I went to Gemini, and in Gemini, what I did is I shared this image of Zyzz in his iconic pose, and I just gave him this prompt. Okay, so generate me an image of Zyzz in his iconic pose, render like a painted 3D printed model collectible with a gym base. So the reason that I gave this prompt is I wanted to see, okay, how this would look like, how should my sculpt potentially look like, and this just gives you a good idea. Then I went further, and then I replaced the base with a barbell plate. This is what Aryan helped me model. This is what Aryan did. And then I just added another prompt where I said create a color digital portrait sculpt reference. To basically what I wanted is I wanted multiple angles of the same sculpture. Okay, and the reason that I use AI is because a lot of people go, oh, why do you use AI, bro? Is because, bro, if I went online, so if I go online and I try to search Zyzz, so see, I'm going through the images here. there's so much variation. Like every pose is different, every facial expression is different, the lighting is different, the rendering is different, the coloring is different. There's so much variation and it will just overwhelm me. So instead of trying to figure out things this way, what I do is I just use AI to generate me a reference that has consistent view, consistent lighting, consistent pose, consistent everything, but just multiple views of the same reference. Okay, your sculpt is a representation of how good your reference was. So if you have good references, you can potentially make a good sculpt. If your references are not nice, then you will end up with a shitty sculpt. That's just how it is. Okay, so instead of being overwhelmed like this, where you're trying to find and figuring out, yo, that's my sculpt. Whoa. Okay, I did not know that, but that's pretty sick. Okay, so my sculpt is here. If you search this, you will see my sculpt as well. Okay, that is awesome. And yeah, this just further proves the point. So if you find a reference like this, then it's so much easier to sculpt with a reference like this instead of trying to figure out everything over here. So the first step is gather good references. Now, with this, I had the reference for the body. I wanted a reference for the face as well. So I tried this prompt and generate a reference for just his face, 3 sides, and you see this does not look like Zyzz at all. And this is what happens with Gemini. This is very common with AI image generators, is that once you go further down the chart, once you're prompting this, it just freaks out. For some reason, they freak out. So what I did is I just made a separate chart. So I started this fresh new chart and I just shared this prompt again. I shared him this image, and this time around I got a much better result. So this was my reference for the face, and this was my reference for the pose and the overall body of Zyzz. Okay, so gathering references is the first step. Perfect. Now with that said, the first thing that I did over here is I always start out with a rough blockout. And the thing that you need to be aware of in the blockout stage is that notice how low poly everything is. If I try to smooth this, you see, everything just smooths out. It's super low poly. The reason you keep everything low poly over here is because it makes it easy to adjust things. So if the proportion of the nose is wrong, okay, I can easily adjust this. I can easily adjust the shape of the mouth. I can easily adjust the shape of the face and everything if I want it wider, if I want it slimmer. So everything is very flexible as it is low poly. Just think about it this way, bro. Like, sculpting is just like modeling, right? And when we model something, we always start with a low poly model and then we gradually add more details. So when the model is low poly, you have less vertices to move around, you have less adjustments to make, you have less things to fix, so it is much easier. Also, another thing that I want you to realize, bro, is that imagine this, bro. So if there's a piece of poop right here, okay, so this is a piece of poo-poo. If I add flowers on this piece of poop, okay, and I try to decorate this piece of poop with some sprinkles or whatever, bro, it's still a stinky piece of shit. No one wants this. The same thing goes for sculpting. Okay, the model that you're making, this blockout is the base. This is the main base. So if this sucks, no matter whatever you add on top of it, you can make the most beautiful eyes, the most beautiful nose, the most beautiful mouth, the most beautiful lips. It's still going to suck because the base sucked. Okay, and this is the most common beginner mistake that I see, is that people suck at making the blockout and then they go about on adding details and pose and everything, and they're like, oh wow, bro, the thing that's going to fix my sculpt is pose. Like, how do you come up with that idea, bro? Like, if this sucks, then everything that's going on top of it sucks. Let me give you another example. So imagine that you're baking a cake. Okay, you bake the cake and this cake turns out to be burnt. It's a burnt cake. Is there any point adding icing to this cake? Any point adding cherry on top of this cake? No. Why? Because the base is shit, bro. No one wants that base. So the same thing goes for sculpting, bro. The eyes, the details that you add later, they are just the icing on top of this base that you sculpted. Okay, so if this sucks, everything else will suck as well. So don't be a Jerry. What Jerry do is that they rush through this process. They just roughly block out something and then start adding the details. That's the wrong way. If you have an hour to sculpt, spend 40 minutes on the blockout, because this is the most important thing. If this is good, if you nail this, adding details is not a problem. And by the way, if you struggle with the basics, if you don't know how to do that, then just check the link in the description. I have a free course that is linked in the description, and this will teach you exactly how to do that. We get results within a month. So you can see the kind of results that we get inside the community. This is where Nick started. This is where he was in 17 days, which is sick. So I help you fix that base, build that foundation so that you don't struggle with the basics ever. ever again, period. Okay, so just check the link in the description. You will get this free course, this free community. Everything is laid out for you step by step. It's a 4-week course, and if you do this, bro, you just need 1 hour every single day, and within 4 weeks you will master the face. It's that simple. Okay, so if you're struggling with this, I got you covered. Just check the link in the description. Perfect. So once I'm happy with the base, what I do is then I make it slightly high poly, and then I made the block out for the hair. And you can see here once again that the hair is super low poly. Okay, the reason is because once again, I don't want to add the details yet. I just want to be happy with the overall silhouette, with the overall shape of the hair. How does it look? I want to get these big shapes down first, and only then will I ever worry about the details. Also, what I do here is I like to just roughly color the model, because I just want a bit more sense of okay, how is the model looking like. Like sometimes what happens is that looking at this gray model does not give you a good idea. So you can always add a bit of color just to get a bit more sense. I do this inside the sculpt mode. So when I'm in sculpt mode, what I do is I go to this paint section, and in the paint section, what I do is I just use the paint blend brush and I just color these rough skin tones on my model. No need to UV unwrap this, no need to texture this. You don't want to invest so much time in this. Okay, just roughly color something, and that will give you a good sense of things. All right, so once I'm happy with the base and everything, that is also when I add more details to the hair. Okay, so here is something that I don't like using the curves method. So a lot of people, they're like, hey, you can use the curves method. There's the hair particle system and all that, but I don't like diving into that stuff. It's just so overwhelming. It takes so much time. What I like to do is I like to sculpt my hair. And the way that I do this is once I have a good block out. Okay, so once you have a good block out of the hair, the block out is the most important thing. So once you have a good block out, you can go to sculpt mode, and then you go high poly. So I'll see, I'm going high poly once I'm satisfied with the block out. If you rush this, you're going to suffer. So once you have a good block out, you make it high poly, use the clay strip brush. And what I like to do is I just like to indicate big clump of hair. Okay, so I'm just indicating big clumps of hair, okay, with the clay strip brush. So you can see I'm just adding these big clump of hair. And what I also like to do is I just like to indicate some overlapping. So see how this hair is on top of this one. So also just introduce some overlapping over here. So for example, you make this strand, so this big hair clump, make another one emerge from in between there, and that overlaps the one that you just created. So this will add more interest to your model. What you want to do is just have a bit of order, a bit of chaos, a mix of order and chaos. This is slightly random, but a bit intentional as well. It's hard to describe, but I hope this makes sense. So see, I'm just indicating big clump of hair. Once I have a good silhouette, the more variety you have to this, the better it is. And by the way, bro, like hair is something you can spend longer on the hair than you spend on the whole freaking face. That is how detailed hair can be. So I just like to give the illusion of detail on the hair. And once you have this, like, of course, you can go even higher poly if you want to. So once you go even higher poly, you can then use the draw sharp brush. So use the draw sharp brush, and within these clumps of hair that you sculpted, you can indicate more hair strands. And this is like the tedious part of sculpting hair. Okay, so this is where you can go freaky. So you can go crazy with the hair. You can use any alpha brushes to texture the hair over here as well, but I don't like to go this detail on the hair. As long as I have something that resembles hair, gives the illusion of detail, I'm happy. Okay, and the thing that I like to look at, which is very interesting, so let me show you. The thing that I like to look at when sculpting hair is marble sculpts. So people back then were like marble sculptures. It's like I always fell in awe when I look at these sculptures. Okay, because of course, like you're chiseling marble, tick, 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 tick. You can't make every individual hair, can you? So I admire the people back then. And I believe like art is not the addition of details. It's more about how much can you remove and still give the same illusion. I just love art, and I love the expression of art this way, where you minimize the effort, but you maximize the result. So you can see here, even on the marble sculptures, what the marble sculptures do, the traditional marble sculptures do, is that they indicate these big strands of hair. So let me show you here. So if we were to break this down, you can see, just a sec. Yep. So see here, you can see the big strands of hair. You can see the big clump of hair. Okay, so this is the most important thing. You indicate the clump of hair, and then within that, you can indicate some finer hair strands, and that just gives you the illusion of detail. So I just like to look at people who make marble sculptures for my inspiration when I'm sculpting here. Okay, so that's how I sculpted the hair. After that, once I was fairly happy with the face, what I did is I blocked out the torso. And why did I block out the torso this way? This looks like a weird pose. Why would you block it out this way, Ishaq? Okay, so let me describe that to you. Let me quickly load up the reference. Just a sec. Please bear with me. I should have done this before. But yeah, this is part of recording. You sometimes miss some stuff. Okay, here it is. So I know that down the lane, I have to pose my character this way, where the arms are above his head. Okay, so the arms are above. So it's so much easier to block it out this way rather than making him in a pose and then trying to figure out how can I push it to this extreme pose where his arms are above. So it's just easier to plan it out and block it out this way. By the way, just check out the torso. Okay, even on the torso, you can see that it's fairly low poly. It's not extremely detailed. I don't make the veins or anything. It's fairly low poly. And the reason is, once again, it's just that I just want something that looks like a torso now, with the main muscles blocked out and everything. And later, once I'm happy with this, I can dive in and detail this even further. If this sucks, then bro, this stage will suck where I add the details. Okay, so this is really, really important. This is how you save time. This is how you sculpt fast. So people think that, okay, if you want to sculpt fast, you need to practice so much and do that. No. It's simply about avoiding the mistakes that you would be solving down in the future. So for example, if I suck at the block out of the face and then I add the eyes and the nose and the mouth, and it's a shitty face. Now when I try to fix that sculpt, it's already high poly. I try fixing the eyes, I mess up the nose. I try fixing the mouth, I mess up the eyes. So that's a continuous process. Okay, and I'm just fixing things that I could have simply avoided if I had paid more attention in the blockout. So the blockout is the most important thing. Okay, the most important, hands down. And yep, so one really important thing about the torso, bro, is when you block out the torso, also block out the nipple. The nipple is the most important part of the torso. And why is it that, you may ask? Like, why is the nipple the most important thing? It's because, just look, bro, the nipple is the point. The nipple is the point, bro. If there's no nipple, there's no point. Like, what's the point? The nipple is the point. So the nipple is very, very important. And if you want to sculpt torsos like this, bro, like, you don't need to dive into anatomy, into such that you're a doctor. Like, I don't care what the name of these muscles, bro. I don't even know half of these muscles. You'd want to sculpt like an artist, not a doctor. And if that is something that you're struggling with, you can just check out the Davinci School here. And bro, like, you can see every single day I get to see results of people learning how to sculpt torsos, sculpting different part of the body in the easiest way possible. Like I said, bro, I just make content for my younger self. Okay, and this is something that overwhelmed me for the longest time. So these bullshit anatomical terms, like learning like a medical doctor, I wanted to learn like an artist, bro. And everyone wanted to say these fancy names because it just gives them a bono or something. They want to sound professional. I don't care about sounding professional. I care about results. Your results, my results. And you can get amazing results by not memorizing these things, by not learning it to an extent where you contemplate, okay, am I a doctor or am I an artist? You're an artist. So learn like one. And you can see, so I just made a low poly block out of the torso. And the reason that I made the shoulders up, is I just already explained, is because down the lane I know that I have to pose him this way. So it's better to pre-plan this thing and to save time and effort. Perfect. Now, moving forward, what I did is I just blocked out the legs, and the legs, once again, just blocking out the main muscles. And I feel like this part is definitely wider. I did fix it down the lane. So this is part of the process. Art is a process of fixing your mistakes. And everyone thinks, oh, bro, it should be perfect from the first stroke and everything. No, bro, like, art is a process. It's a process. You make something, you figure out what's wrong, and then you try to fix those mistakes. It's a constant process. It's a constant learning process. If you're an artist, when you decide to be an artist, you also commit to being a lifelong student. You're a lifelong student. You can never know enough. So art is always the process of fixing your mistakes. Don't be too hard on yourself. Don't feel like this is not working. Just figure it out. Okay, what am I doing wrong? What can I improve? What mistake did I make? And then improve on those mistakes. The best thing that you can do is look at your reference. And the best tip that I have for looking at references is look, sculpt. Look, sculpt. So many people, what they do is that they're sculpting like a Jerry bro, and then they're sculpting, and then they figure, oh, maybe it's time that I look at the reference now. Bro, like, the reference is there to guide you. The point of a reference is that it guides you the journey of your sculpting. So look, you make an observation, and then you implement those things on your sculpt. So look, make an observation, and then implement those things on your sculpt, and not the other way around. So very, very importantly, look at your reference. Your reference is the answer sheet. If something feels off, look at your reference. How does it compare to your sculpt? And that's the easiest thing, bro. So reference, super important. Okay, so look and then sculpt. So once I was done with the legs, I made some improvements to it, and you can see I narrowed down. It looks more proportional. Also, what I did is I just blocked out the foot. And then over here, this starts to get interesting. So what I did is I just made a blockout for the arm, and I just marked the main muscles of the arm. And here you see the hand, I just made the hand into a separate object. The reason being is because I wasn't sure if I was going to pose it. Maybe it might have some angle, so I wanted it to be flexible. Whatever part of your model you want to be flexible, you want to keep it as a separate object, and you don't want to start combining things too early. The reason being is, let me give you this example. So let's say I have a cube. Okay, where's the cube? Here's the cube. So I have this cube, and let's duplicate another cube. Let's place it here, and let's duplicate this situation here. So what happens is, let's say this is the head, this is the body, and I want more detail on the head. So when I remesh this, you see I have more detail on the head, but the body is still fairly low poly. This is because this is intentional. I want to have more flexibility with the body than on the head. So you keep these things separate. If you combine the head and body too early, so if you combine these things too early, so Control J, and if you remesh now, it's one mesh, bro. So if you try to make the face more high poly, the body will be high poly as well, and it's going to be hard to adjust things. It's going to lose flexibility. So the reason that I keep things separate is because, let's say, so see here, the face is relatively high poly. Let me show you the statistics. So the face is around 220k vertices, whereas the body is just 70k. If this was combined, then the body would have been high poly as well. I know that. Okay, I might make some adjustments down the lane. It's a good idea to keep these things separate. Another thing that I want to share with you here is the hand. I made it separately, but the way that I duplicated it is a bit unique. So instead of just Shift D and placing the hand there, what I did is I press Alt D. What Alt D does, Alt D creates an linked duplicate. I think that's what it's called. And the cool thing about this is that you see here, so if I make an adjustment to this hand here, it affects all of the linked duplicates. So this is very, very nice to have. And the reason being is because, so see, this hand is in a neutral position. It's easy to look from the front. I can go through the orthographic views. It's easy to look from the side, from the top, from the bottom, however I want to look at this. But once the hand is posed, bro, so see, this is the posed hand. The front is weird, the side is weird, the top is weird, and it just makes it difficult to sculpt with. So I like to make it as a linked object. This gives me flexibility when working on the hand, and whatever change I make here, it will automatically be implemented on the hand over here as well. So this is why you want to use a link duplicate. Okay, perfect. So see, it's really simple so far, but like, you just proceed with your model step by step, and you proceed in a way that you start with something that's low poly, and gradually you add more details. Okay, perfect. So once I was happy with this, what I did is I tried experimenting with the pose a bit, and this is where it starts to get interesting. So I will show you how I went about posing this, but here's what I did as well. So I took the hand, so this hand here, and then I wanted to mirror it to the other side. So what I did is I duplicated the hand here, press S, X -1, scale it on the X-axis. This just flips the hand, and then I placed it in a position that made sense for the second arm. Okay, so you place it, And the way that you pose this is, let me also show you how I pose this. So the way that I pose this, bro, is you isolate this, you go to sculpt mode, and in sculpt mode you want to select the lasso mask tool, and with the lasso mask tool you select the upper half of the arm. Okay, make sure that you get this elbow as well, because it's important. That's the pivot point, isn't it? So the arm, of course, it rotates around the elbow, so you want to select the elbow as well. So make a cut right. How do I show this to you? So make a cut right here where the arm is actually rotating, where it's pivoting. Once you have this, you can go to the mask brush. So press M, go to the mask brush, you hold shift, and you see as I spray the mask brush here holding shift, it just smooths out the mask. This prevents from any sharp creases happening and just gives you a more smoother transition. So once you have this, press Ctrl I. This is the area that I want to move, and here you just select the rotate tool. And you see, if I try rotating it now, it just acts really weird. We want the pivot point to be here where we intend it to be. So the way that you move the pivot point here is you go to sculpt. So this option here, sculpt, you go to set pivot, and then you go to pivot to mask border. And since you can see this is the border between the masked area and the unmasked area, this is where it moves the pivot point. And see here I can easily rotate the arm. So this is how I went about posing it. And this will not be perfect. So of course, once you do pose it, you have to go and do some cleanup. Okay, so for example, let me show you. Let me delete this. So the cleanup that I had to do is around this area. Also, I fixed it over here. Yeah, see here. So this is where I started doing the cleanup. So I did the cleanup here. Also notice one more thing is that the arm, okay, so when the arm is extended, notice how the bicep here, it just makes this flat shape. It makes a line. But when I curl it, okay, that is when you see a bit of this peak as well. So I also added that peak over here, that curvature to the bicep here. So these are just some things that you have to observe in your reference. Okay, so notice here how this one has a peak. This one is relatively straight because it's almost like a stretched out arm. So yeah, once again, look, sculpt, look, sculpt. That is how I pose the arm. I did the same thing for the torso. So the torso here, let me duplicate it for you. And here's how I duplicated how I posed the torso. So once again, lasso mask tool, go to the side, select the torso. With the mask brush, you want to smoothen the transitions. Okay, just smooth the mask, and then of course go to the rotate tool and sculpt, set pivot, pivot to mask border. And yeah, you do want to disable symmetry. Of course, you want to disable symmetry. Okay, so disable symmetry. Also, this is a good time to make a copy of the file, so that, because this is a destructive method. Okay, once you turn off symmetry, there's no going back. So do keep a duplicate of the file. Okay, perfect. So once you have this, Control I, and see here, this is how you can indicate that pose on the torso. And a tip that I have for posing is, don't just pose it so robotically like this. Always have some curvature to the body. Okay, like the body, it needs to take care of the center of gravity. Okay, if you just move the torso, that does not work. Try this yourself, bro. Like when you're moving your torso, your hips also rotate slightly, your shoulders also rotate slightly, so you have to take care of these things as well. So the way that I did this is I slightly rotated the hips. So I slightly rotated the model this way, so slightly rotated it this way, and then I went about adding that curve there. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you. The reason that this weird thing is happening, the leg is attached, is because I have a mirror modifier on the leg. And of course, if you have a mirror modifier, you have to apply it first. Okay, perfect. So I slightly rotated the torso itself so that the body can have this natural curve to it. Okay, perfect. So this was just a rough test to see, okay, how the pose is. And since you see everything is separate, I was able to apply the mirror modifier, move this leg separately, move this leg separately, move the feet separately, and just give the character a bit of a pose. An important thing is that you want to check all sides. Okay, so when you're posing something, you check the front, you also check the side. Try to find the rhythm of the body. Okay, I see that, okay, the front of the torso is curving this way. I see it, okay, this is almost like an S shape. Okay, so this is a smooth curve. Okay, I see that, okay, the torso is not straight, but it's curving this way. Okay, so you want to check all sides. This is why you need references, good quality references, and AI and Gemini can help you do that. Okay, so check all sides. If you don't check all sides, the pose is going to look very, very robotic. It's going to look very rigid, and you want it to smooth. You want it to flow smoothly. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Perfect. And yeah, here's another thing. So I now know that, okay, I also have to rotate the head, the whole face. So what I did is I also made a linked duplicate for the face. Okay, and you see here, so I know that, okay, if I do want to make any adjustments to the face later, if I want to make it fatter, I don't know, I want to give him a bit of a pissed off expression, his cheeks to be angry and okay, so I can do that, and anything that I do here, it will be affected over here as well. Wow, he looks like he just fell from heaven and landed on his face. And how do you unlink this? Honestly, bro, I don't know how you do that. I really don't know how you unlink something. So once you make a link duplicate, I don't know how you unlink it. If you know this, please leave a comment, help me out as well. Okay, perfect. So once I had this rough pose, what I did is I just pushed the pose further. Okay, and you see, this is where I did not have. Okay, so let me show you actually. Let's isolate both of these poses. Let me move this slightly behind. So look at the side. See how straight the body is. This is because I did not add any curvature to it. So once again, when I was pushing the pose this way, what I did is I slightly rotated the torso this way. And then I used the masking method to have this curve as well. Like I said, you want it to flow smoothly. You don't want it to be rigid. You don't want it to look very robotic. So this is where I just pushed the pose even further. And you can see, if I show you from the back, okay, notice that the shoulders are almost at a similar length. Okay, it's not that exaggerated, but in this pose, look at how high this shoulder goes versus how almost horizontal this shoulder is. So you really want to push the pose here. A tip that I have here is you can go here to the shading options. So go to the shading options, and here, instead of matte cap, you want to select flat. So when you select flat, it will give you a flat look. And I have color, so I will just turn on material. And by default, you will also have this setting here. So it's called outline. I did not know how to do this. So someone inside the Davinci School, he actually told me that you just need to disable outline. So I love learning from the members inside as well. And you see, when you turn on this view, you can actually just focus on the silhouette. Notice how rigid this one looks versus how flowy and smooth this one looks. Okay, this one looks much natural. So you can also test your pose this way. It should read well from multiple angles. Like if you rotate this around, it should read well. Okay, this is how you can check the silhouette of the model as well. Perfect. And yeah, still we have a linked duplicate. You see, I haven't combined anything. Everything is still super low poly. This is because everything is still in an experimental stage. I'm playing around. I'm trying to get a good pose. There's still room for adjustment here, so I want to have that flexibility. And once I'm happy with this, once I feel like, okay, the pose is good, I like how the things are looking, I like the proportions of things. So for example, if the proportions were right, I could scale the arm up. Just as an example, I could scale the legs up. Okay, I could scale the legs up, and I can experiment with the pose here. I can experiment with the proportions here because everything is still fairly low poly. Everything is detached. So you want to keep this. You want to have flexibility for as long as you can. And once you're happy with everything, that is when I combine everything. So you can see I just combined everything and I went slightly higher poly. So you can see, okay, notice how jagged this mesh is. And also this is also something that a lot of people freak out with. If they see like, oh wow, this mesh is slightly jagged, I need to add more geometry so that I can smooth this. Or worse, what they do is that they click on the model, right click, and then shade smooth. Like this is the worst thing you can do, bro, because when you do this, you can't actually see what you're sculpting. It just becomes hard to see what you're sculpting. Okay. Whereas if I'm in the shade flat version, I can see exactly all of the individual vertices, and this is a much better view to sculpt. So never shade this smooth. If your mesh is slightly jagged, bro, deal with it. Like, it's part of the process. It's going to be low poly in the beginning. Now, if you've ever seen someone crafting something by hand, I don't know, crafting something with metal, they melt metal and then they mold it into something. Polishing is always the final stage. That is when the model shines. So polishing is always the last stage. Before that, everything is rough, everything is jagged. When they're making a blade, when they're crafting a blade, they sand it towards the end, because they want to be happy with everything first, and then they finalize it with the polishing. The same thing goes for sculpting, bro. Everything will look jagged, it will look rough, it will look low poly, and then polishing is the last stage, and we're almost there. Okay, so you want to have that flexibility, keep that room to adjust your errors and mistakes as long as you can. Another tip that I have is I sculpted this in multiple sittings. So an hour here, 3 hours here, and then the next day I was sculpting for another 2 hours. So break down the time that you're sculpting. The reason for that is because when you're sculpting for too long, you develop tunnel vision. And when you have tunnel vision, bro, it's very hard to see the mistakes. So it's always a good idea that you're sculpting for a while, an hour, 1.5 hours, however long you can focus. You sculpt for a while and then you pause, you just go for a walk, I don't know, sit with your mom, spend time with your family or something. I don't know, meditate for 10 minutes. And then when you come back, you will instantly see, okay, these are some things that I can improve. You will notice things that you hadn't noticed before. So this is a very, very good trick. Just break down your sculpting sessions into multiple sessions and just allow yourself to get out of that tunnel vision. Just refresh your eyes for a while, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, just take a walk. I don't know, go take a dump if you have to. When you come back, you will have more clarity. Perfect. And yeah, I don't know why my nose is super scratchy all of a sudden. Perfect. So you have this. I'm happy with the pose now. And once I was happy with the pose, keyword, once I was happy, when I was satisfied with this, then I combined everything. And you can see that everything is now combined. We don't have these sharp seams in the legs, in the arms, in the hands. I combined everything and I smoothed the transitions between things. So it looks nice. Also the cloth here. So the underwear, the way that I made the, why can't I select it? So yeah, the way that I made the underwear is that once everything is selected, let me isolate this. So this is how you make clothing on your models. And if you have seen that you don't have to trace polygons around your model to make clothes, that Wolverine reel, okay. I made that reel and it went viral. So it's the exact same method here. You just select part of your mesh with the lasso mask tool and then you make an extraction. So you go to mask and then you go to mask extract and then you press extract. Okay. So let's wait for that to extract. And when it does extract, bro, I want you to realize that this extraction is going to be extremely high poly because your model was high poly. That is where it is extracted from. And you see, even if I isolate this, let me isolate this. So when I isolate this, let's try to smooth this. It's not smoothing properly because of how high poly this is. And even if I try to remesh it to a lower value, so let's try to remesh this, you see the whole model breaks. The reason that this model breaks is because when something is extracted from a model, it is just a single plane. You might have this modifier and yes, you can apply this modifier and then yes, you can remesh, but the model is so high poly, why would you want to do this? Okay, instead what you do is disable this modifier. And if you have the quad remesher, let me delete this. I think I accidentally extracted the eyebrows as well. Perfect. Set origin. Center. Okay, perfect. And once you have an extraction, which is fairly high poly, what you want to do is you need to remesh this. So you can either go here to the data settings, and in data settings, you want to go to remesh. In remesh, you want to go to quad reflow remesh, and here you just select a value. I think 5000 should be good. The default Blender quad remesher is not nice. It does not work well. So preserve sharp, preserve mesh boundary, and let's see what kind of results does this give us. Let's see. Okay, not bad actually. So this will give you a low poly extraction. And you see now when I try to smooth it, it's so much easier to do this. If I want to add details to this, what I will do is I will apply the multi-res modifier. The way that you apply the multi-res modifier is you stay inside sculpt mode and you press Control 1, Control 1, Control 2, and if I go to the modifier tab, you can see that the multi-res modifier is applied. It's the same as the subdivision modifier. So when you're editing something, it's the same as a subdivision modifier. So see, I press Control 1, I can go back to low poly. Control 0 will go back to the original state. And the cool thing about this is that you can always toggle through the sculpting stages. So for example, I want to make wrinkles on the model now. So you see, it's super low poly. I cannot make the wrinkles, but I can go up. So I showed you how to add subdivision. You can also press the subdivide button here. So you go higher on the sculpt level, and then you can sculpt some details. You can sculpt some folds on the clothing. And the cool thing about this is that, for example, you want to make a big adjustment, you want to adjust the shape of this, you can always go down to the lower subdivision value, and this keeps the low version, and hence it's easier to adjust. So this is like having the best of all worlds. You have the low poly version, you have the high poly version, and then you can add details. So you can see here, so if I go down the subdivision levels, this is the this is the extraction that I made. A fairly simple extraction, and then I subdivided it, and you can see that is when I started to add the folds and everything. Okay, so multi-res modifier, really cool. The reason that we remesh this is because for multi-res modifier we do want the model to have good squares. Okay, so having good squares, it's easy. And the reason that this works is I already told you that the multi-res modifier is the same as a subdivision modifier. So let me show you how a subdivision modifier works, just in case you don't know. So I have this plane, and let's say I add polygons here. Okay, but I'm focusing the polygons on one corner. You can see, okay, I'm focusing them on one corner. So the way that the subdivision modifier works is it adds more geometry where there's already more geometry. And this way you end up with a model that has a high poly area and a low poly area. And this just gives you a very inconsistent sculpting experience. So in order to tackle that, what we do is we just remesh our model. So see, if I can just go to the quad remesher here, I have this add-on, by the way. So remesh it. Let's wait for it to remesh. Okay, let's wait for this to remesh. Boom, see? So now I have a perfect, equally spaced, squared model. And now when I try to subdivide this, see how smooth the subdivision is being added, how uniform the subdivision is being added. This is important for sculpting. If you have a high poly area and a low poly area on the sculpt that you're making, like for example, if I'm sculpting a wrinkle here, it will be more detailed here, and then it will fall apart when I reach here. So that is why you need equal geometry, equally spaced geometry. The best way to do this is to just use the quad reflow remesh here. If you have the quad remesher this is a paid add-on, by the way, but I just like investing in this. The paid version of the quad remesher is very nice, and it just works very reliably. So this is what I use. And a lot of people think, oh wow, Ishaq, but it's $100. Should I spend that money? And let me tell you, bro, whatever money you spend in saving time is an investment in yourself. The reason being is time is money. So give yourself a hypothetical hourly rate. Okay, let's say $30 an hour, hypothetically. If you can save 3 hours of your time with this tool right here, you just saved $100. You just saved $90. And over the course of your life, bro, you're going to be using this tool, and you're going to save so much time, so much effort than having to manually retopologize stuff, trying to make the quad reflow remesh, the default Blender quad reflow remesh work. You're going to spend so much time, waste so much time there. Instead, you can save hours and hours and hours and hours of your time with this tool. And when you save that time, bro, time is money. So that is how I like to think about things. You can try to figure out sculpting on your own, and I don't know, maybe you will figure it out eventually in 2 years, but maybe you could invest in a program that teaches you to do how to do that same thing in a month. That's the point of investing in this. And I know this because for the longest time, I tried to get by free tutorials, free stuff here and there. But the only time I saw real growth was when I took a decision and I took that investment in myself. What took me years and years and years to figure out, it took me much less time to figure out when I invested in my journey. Okay, so if you're double-minded about the quad reflow remesh, bro, I would highly recommend that you get it. It's a no-brainer. It will save you so much time. And let me get some water. My throat is really dry. Just a sec. Ah. Oh boy, that feels so good. How long have I been talking for? I have been talking continuously for 45 minutes. I thought this breakdown is going to be like 25 minutes or 30 minutes or so. But here we are. By the way, if you do appreciate content like this, where it's raw and it does not involve a lot of stimulants that rots your brain, then just subscribe, bro. I would love to have you around. You're definitely not a Jerry, and I appreciate you making it this far. Perfect. Now we're only left with the detailing stage, so that's the fun part, and then I will show you the lighting side of things. Okay, perfect. So let's do that. So, just a sec. That's my mom. Let me quickly get that. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I had promised my mom some tea time, so we have some tea time together. So I just asked her if she could wait just half an hour so that I can finish this recording. I did not intend for this video to be this long, but here we are. Perfect. Now that everything looks good, everything is combined, now is the fun part where we start to detail things. And see, since we followed this order, adding details makes so much more sense. What Jerry's do, bro, is that they suck here and then they try to jump directly on the detailing part. It's similar to climbing a ladder. Okay, so if we have a ladder here, right? The way that you climb a ladder, and okay, here's a Jerry. So a Jerry is standing here. The way that you climb a ladder, a normal person, an intelligent person, the way that he climbs a ladder is step by step. Okay, but here's what a Jerry does. He said, no, bro, 5 steps takes long, but one big jump takes less time. So let me make this one big jump. And bro, in that pursuit of that one big jump, where he's completely avoiding the steps in between, he's trying to jump from the low poly to the detail model, he wastes so much time. This is something that will not work, bro. This will not work. So always proceed with your model step by step, because this makes sense, bro, because this base makes sense. All of the details that we add over here, they will make sense as well. Perfect. So let me dive over here what I did. So in the detailing stage, what I did is I just pushed the colors further. I added more skin tones. I made it more higher poly, and you can see I added all of the muscle separations here. What I was doing once again was simply looking at the reference. So look at the reference, make an observation, and then implement those things on your sculpt. Just a sec, let me get the door. Someone's knocking. Yeah, it was a parcel for my wife. I had to get that. And I just hate distractions, bro. This is why I like recording my videos first thing in the morning. I actually got up at 5 a.m. to record this video, but it just took so much preparation and everything that I have to record it now, where there's a bit more distractions. Okay, perfect. Let's dive here. So what I did here is I just pushed the skin tones, and you can see I added all of these details. And like I said, bro, the muscle separation, everything, what I was doing is I was simply making an observation and then implementing those things inside my sculpt. And since this made sense, all of these details make sense as well. So let me show you some tips and tricks on how you can get good skin textures. So the cool thing about the skin is, the important thing about the skin is, why is this so laggy? Do I have render view enabled here? Well, I think this is slightly taking up some memory. So let me turn off that. Perfect. Do I have anything here? No. Okay, perfect. That should solve it. So let me just show you. So here on the skin, you see there's so many color variations. If you look at this is just a flat skin color, but here you can actually see, you can see some reds here, you can see some yellows here, you can even see some veins. So this is yeah, comment down below, like, do you think I cooked with the veins, or do you think this is an overkill? This is absolutely unnecessary. What do you think? Does it look cool? But yeah, you can see that there's randomness to the skin. Okay, and this is the thing about 3D, bro. So in 3D, imperfection is perfection. Nothing in real life is ever perfect. If you look at your own skin, try looking at your own hand, try looking at your arm or wherever you can see yourself. Just try looking at yourself and notice that there's no flat color ever. You have some pigmentation here and there, you have some mix of reds, you have some red spots here, some yellow spots, some blues, some purples. So the more variety you have for the skin, the better the skin texture will be. The way that I do this is I go to the paintbrush, So go to the paint section in sculpt mode, and in the, I like to use the paint blend brush, and then right click this, duplicate asset, and then rename this skin temp. Okay, so just temporary skin. In the library, just choose current file if you just want to keep it to this file, or user library if you want the brush to be forever there in other project files as well. I just like to use current file, just keeps things more organized. And the reason that we duplicated this is because you don't want to mess the settings here, because you're going to figure, okay, how do I revert back? So you don't have to think about that. You just have a duplicate brush and you can completely mess this up. It's completely fine. So once you have this brush, you go to the setting, and in the setting, you go down to color. And in color, you click randomize color. This is also a trick that one of the students inside the Davinci School showed me. So thank you, Nikolai, for showing me this trick. And in hue and saturation, you can add a bit more, you can add some randomness. And see, when I paint skin tones now, notice how I'm getting these subtle hues, subtle variations to it. Okay, let's color pick the skin here. So let's color pick the skin. So Shift X to color pick the skin here. And see, as I'm painting, I'm getting so much variation. I'm getting color variations, and this is good for skin. This might be a bit too much, so instead of 0.3, use 0.2, but you do want this variation on your sculpt. Another cool trick that you can do is go down here, scroll a bit further. You will see the texture section. In texture section, click new, and then you go to the texture property. So this button right here will allow you to edit the texture. So edit the texture, and then over here you select clouds. So when you select clouds, you can also play with the contrast, with the brightness a bit, and you just want a bit of black and white areas. The reason that you want this is now, see, your brush is even more random. It has this texture to it, and like I said, bro, imperfection is perfection. So the more variety you have with the skin, okay, notice how I have some spots here and there. So the more variety you have with this, the more realistic your skin will look. Okay, perfect. So this is how I add so many color variations without trying to go, okay, red, now yellow, now blue. Just randomize it, bro. Perfect. Once I have the base color, once I have the skin overall, by the way, another cool trick is just another tip to keep in mind, that the face will have some red areas. So the nose, the cheeks, these are areas that has more blood generally. So that will be red. The lips will be more red. You will see a bit more of grays here and blues here because of the stubble wherever we have hair follicles. And as a general rule of thumb, wherever you see more muscle, so the chest is very bulky, has a lot of muscle, that area will be more red. Wherever you have bones, so for example, we would have the collarbone here, that area would be a bit more yellow. Also this area, it's close to the rib cage, so a bit more yellow. This area is close to the pubic bone, so a bit more yellow. So wherever you, that's a bony area, just touch yourself. Not in the bed though, but just try touching yourself. Wherever you feel is a bony area, that will be slightly more yellow. Just add color varieties like this. And once I have the good base of the skin itself, then I go about using alpha textures and adding these details like the veins and the tattoos and everything. So let me show you how I made the tattoos. So for the tattoos, bro, what you want to do is you want to use the paint hard brush. And I already made a duplicate for this. Let me check. Yeah, this temp brush. And what you do here is you go to the setting once again. So inside the paint hard brush, you go to the setting. In the setting section, what you want to do is you want to go to texture. And in the texture, you just want to find a black and white texture that will allow you to paint some tattoos. So let me show you the texture that I have. So let me open that up just a sec. So yeah, here it is. So I just went to Pinterest and got these random textures for the tattoos. Okay, and I could play around with them. I just want to experiment them. So I just loaded up a bunch of random textures. Okay, just so that I can make the tattoo. And here's Aryan, because of course he's here on the mug. So that was the mug shot. That's a terrible joke, isn't it? So we have the mug shot on the mug. Here's my mug shot. That was the texture there. And the way that textures work in Blender is that wherever there is white, it will paint. Wherever there is black, it will not paint. Okay. And let me show you the color textures here. So all of these images that I was able to find on Pinterest, they were inverted. So I had to go to Photoshop as well and invert them, because now what would happen is wherever there is white, that would paint. Wherever there is black, it would just simply ignore. And one more setting is once you load the texture in, with the proper black and whites. You go to stroke, okay, and you see here by default it's at space. So if I try painting this now, see, it's painting the texture, but it's not nice. We just wanted to slap it on once. So what you do is, instead of space, you go to anchored, and what anchor does is it makes your cursor click and drag. So wherever you click and drag, that is where it will add that tattoo or that texture, whatever you chose. So the way that I did it on the arm is I just used the lasso mask tool once again. So the lasso mask tool, and I masked out this area on the arm, so an area like this. Then I inverted the mask, and then the way that I showed you this brush, so hard brush with the texture and the anchored setting, you just take your texture and then you add the tattoo the way that you would want it to be on the model. Okay, so that's the easy way of adding tattoos, adding more details. The same thing happened with the veins. So for the veins, what I did is I used the same thing. I had this vein alpha brush that I made, so this one, and like I told you, I had to invert it. So where's the inverted version? Yeah, here's the inverted version, because I wanted the white to paint. And then I just added a subtle blue color to it with very less transparency. So I adjusted the strength, made the strength very, very low. And then I added these subtle veins that you can see on the model. It's a very minor detail, but I feel like having veins, it definitely adds a lot more depth to the texture that you have. Also, I shared this model with Aryan, and I was like, hey bro, what do you think? And he told me that, okay, this tattoo is very important. By the way, I did not know who Zyzz was before this, but when I looked into him, like, bro, he's so inspirational. Like, this dude actually started influencing when influencing wasn't a thing, when YouTube wasn't a thing. I think he started on MSN or something, MySpace or something, and he actually began the trend of influencing. It's unfortunate that he passed away so early. I think he was around 22 years old when he did pass away. And Aryan told me that, okay, this tattoo is very important. It's Veni Vidi Vici. I think it means I came, I won, or something like that. That's the meaning behind it. But it was too late. I had already posted, and now I had to add that texture. So how was I going to do that? How do I follow this curve of the chest? The first thing is, how do I find this tattoo? So once again, I used AI. And on AI, what I did is I googled Zyzz tattoo, and then I was able to find this image. So this was a close-up of his tattoo. I went to Gemini and I gave it this prompt. So change this into a clip art where the text is 100% white, because that is the part that I wanted to paint, and the background is 100% black, no stretching. And I also gave it the instruction of 1 by 1. So it should be in a perfect square. And this is what it gave me. But this wasn't perfect, because when I tried to slap this on the model, what it gave me is it gave me a straight line. Whereas what I want is I want a curve. I want it to follow the shape of the chest muscle. So when the arm is up, of course, the chest is stretched, and we want the tattoo to stretch with it. So what I did is I went to Photoshop, and in Photoshop, what I did is I just took this image and I just slightly warped it to have that curvature. And with that curvature, I used the same technique here. I just used the anchored brush and added that detail over here. Okay, so once again, like, the same principles follow here, bro. You want to start with the basic skin texture, and once you have that, that is when you start to add all of these details. Now, I don't know if there's a proper, better way to do this, but this is how I do it. The way that you want to have this in a sequence is because if you, for example, any reason try to smooth the colors out, you will lose all of the details that you sculpted. Okay, so always be satisfied with the skin, basic skin first, and then go about adding all of these details like the tattoos and the veins. So see, if I smooth it for any reason, I will lose all of that detail. So you just have to pre-plan this a bit, and then it won't be a problem. So this was my process on how I sculpted Zyzz in Blender, how I sculpted this posed sculpt in Blender. Perfect. Now let's get on with the, what do you call it? Yeah, the presentation. Perfect. So this file here, how do I do this? Okay, so honestly, bro, if you are thinking of presenting a model, the first step that I have for you is do not think about presenting if you do not like what you see on the viewport. This is the most how do I say this in a kind way, in a nice way? I can't find good words for this. This is the worst way to go about your sculpts. Okay, you're a Jerry if you do this. And what Jerry does, bro, is that he thinks, okay, bro, I don't like what's in my viewport. I don't like this sculpt over here. I think what's going to fix it is good lighting. Good lighting is not a fix for a bad sculpture. Do not light your sculpts. Do not render them if you do not like what you see on the viewport. If you're struggling with sculpting, bro, the only things that's going to fix a bad sculpt is learning how to sculpt. Not good lighting, not rendering, not animation. I see these stupid people online all the time. And what they do is that they make a shitty sculpt and then they light it and then they render it and then they make a 360 animation video of it and then they post it on social media. Okay, what do you think about this? I spent 1 hour sculpting and then I spent 4 hour lighting. They're like, how does that make any sense, bro? I don't pay so much attention to lighting. So what I did is I just made this scene once and I use it for every model that I present. So if I go to my ArtStation, let me show you. So on my ArtStation, when I do present my models, this is how I do it. I just have this one scene and I just slap in every model that I make and boom, I have a template that works for me. So let me tell you how I make this look realistic, because a lot of people comment, okay, Ishaq, this looks very realistic. How do you do that? So let me describe that. But I wanted to give this disclaimer that if your sculpting sucks, lighting is not a fix for it. Let me just pause this video, but I don't know why I have this such an itchy nose today. Let me go wash my face or something. Okay, that's better. I think I also trimmed my facial hair that, and some hair I don't know, messing with my nose. Like it's on the underside. It's so annoying. But yeah, I think I do feel better now. So what I do here is, let me show you the lighting here. My setup is really, really simple, bro. What I do is I have this lighting setup here. I have the camera set. And the adjustments that I make on the scene, I make it on this viewport here. Okay, and this just gives you so much flexibility, because when you're rendering something, you want to set the camera first. Set the camera first, and then just focus on what you can see in the camera. You don't have to worry about things over here, worry about things over here, but like you only need to be worried about what you can see. So that is what you want to focus on, and that is why having a camera really, really helps. The trick that I have for realism is simply to be grounded with reality itself. And what do I mean by that? Okay, so think of what your scene is first. Have a bit of a story, have a bit of a narrative in your scene. So for example, my idea for this was that I want to have a sort of a workshop where I make my 3D models and I paint them there, I cut them there, I put them together there. So this is my workshop. Of course, I would have a flow mat, and then I only think of things, okay, what would make sense in this scene? Maybe I'm sipping my coffee as I'm doing it. Me and Aryan are having a chat, so we both have coffees. And that is how you want to think about your scene. The other tip that I have is, remember that the first tip that I shared you when we were painting the skin is in 3D. Imperfection is perfection. Have that context of your scene. Be grounded with the reality. So for example, this workshop, and what I'm thinking of is, okay, what are the things that are going to be in a workshop? What could be a possible light source in this workshop? What would be the most important thing? What would be the imperfections that I can add to this workshop? This is everything that you need to be thinking about. The key to realism is to stay grounded to realism. Okay, for example, like what could be a light source in a workshop? It could be a lamp, right? It could be a lamp. So I just used one area light. The most common mistake that I see is that people throw in random lights, a random spotlight here, and then a random spotlight here, and then they add an area light in the back of the character to give him some rim light. Yeah, maybe it looks aesthetic, but he won't look realistic. It will not look realistic, because how did that area light end up here? How did a spotlight end up here? It does not make any sense, but it does make sense that the scene has a lamp. So that is the light source that I have. And if I hide this, you can see, but this is the only light source that I have in the scene. The other light source is just the world setting over here. So the world lighting over here. And that is going to be the ambient lighting of a room itself. That's pretty much it. So this is the only light source that I have in this scene. And that's a lamp. That's it. And that is why the lighting looks realistic. The key to a realistic lighting is that you have a realistic light source. Okay, something that makes sense in the scene. Perfect. And as we go here, so let me show you. a few more things that add to the realism is, I told you, think about the imperfections that will happen in the scene. So let me show you some of the imperfections. So let's wait for this to load. Updating device. Okay, perfect. So of course, bro, if I'm sculpting something, if I'm working in a workshop and I paint something, there's going to be splatters of the paint on the mat, won't there? It's a very common practice that when you 3D print something, before you paint it, you give it a white coat before painting, and that is what we have here. Of course, as I'm painting, my brush is going to sprinkle some colors here and there. So that is the spots that I have here on the mat. Another thing is that I have a cutter in the scene. So see, this is a cutting mat. It should have some imperfections. It should have some cuts here and this. You see, notice this cut here. Notice this cut here. This is how a real floor mat would look like. Something that's being used, something that's worn. So like I told you, bro, in 3D, imperfection is perfection. This is the most common beginner mistake. If people want to make a glass, they make it a perfectly clean glass. If they're making a washroom, a toilet render, they're making perfectly clean, reflective, shiny tiles. It just does not exist. Tiles will have some smudging from the water. It will have some, it won't have uniform roughness. It will have noise in the roughness. So that is what you want to be thinking of. And that is always what you want to be thinking of when you're making something. For example, this stack of plates that I have here. Okay, here's what a beginner would do. A beginner would be here, would go here, and I would like, hey bro, can you make a plate stack? And what he would do is he would duplicate this, move it up here, and then shift R, shift R, shift R, shift R, shift R, shift R, and he'd be like, whoa, I have a stack. Whoa, okay, this is nice. It's a stack. But if you want to make it more realistic, here's how you make a stack. Okay, it's imperfect. Some discs are outside, some discs are inside. They're going to have some random rotation to it. Okay, so that is how you make a scene. That is how you add realism to your scene. And speaking of all of these things, they might feel like, okay, there's some really small things. Why should I care about them? These small things is what compiles and gives your scene realism. If everything was perfect here, you would instantly recognize, okay, that this is a render. So have imperfections. Imperfection is what will push your model close to realism. And that is my lighting setup. Easy. Okay. One thing that I do for my lights is that I always try to add a constraint modifier. So a constraint modifier to the model. This way it just makes it so much easier that I don't have to continuously point the light source on the model. And you see, since I have this, bro, I can point it upwards and the scene still makes sense. Because why? Because of course you can position a lamp this way. So always think of your scene in terms of realism, in terms of real life. Okay, if this scene was real, what could the possible light source be? Where would the light source be? How would the light source behave? So since this is the lamp, I used a spherical area light. I did not use a spotlight. A lamp does not dissipate light in every direction. It has a fixed direction. That is why I use an area light. I did not use the sunlight. Why would sun be inside a room? Why does the room does not have any roof? Of course not. Then you just want to, oh my god, what the sorry about that. I don't know why I have a very itchy nose today. But yeah, that's the point. So the key to realistic lighting is to have realistic light sources. And with that said, I think I have covered everything else. I have covered everything. Yeah. So bro, if you're struggling with sculpting, the best place to start is the free course that I showed you here. You just go here, click the link in the description, and you will enter this free community with the free course that will teach you how to sculpt in 4 weeks. But if you're a bit more advanced, if you're good with basics, or if you've done the 1-month challenge, then apply for the Davinci School. This is where all of my series members are. We talk about more advanced stuff. We learn more advanced stuff, and the results that we get inside are pretty insane. I have members who have been struggling with sculpting, with anatomy, completely overwhelmed for years. But then you see, course that I watched in 5 years that really helped me to understand the process about sculpting and not just names. So that is what I do. I make sculpting easy. I teach it in a way I wish someone had taught me. So click the link in the descriptions. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, do leave a comment, do like, share this with a friend, and subscribe if you like content like this, where it actually dives into the steps, the reasoning why it happens, and Yep, not just timeless with some narration. Perfect. That being said, I'm going to go down and have some tea with my mom now. Perfect. Here's a fist bump, my friend. Boom, goodbye.